So today we're going to be talking about sharps and flats, and it's just a quick explanation of what's going on there. One of the big problems with this, in fact the big problem with it, is that it's usually presented as being something very logical, and that unfortunately is not the case, and even more unfortunately means that saying it's logical is very misleading. So to give an example, if you were doing your first maths lesson at school and the maths teacher holds up 2 oranges and says, how many oranges have I got here? And you proudly put your hand up and shout out 2, and she says, no, it's 2.5. You're going to conclude that you don't understand very much about counting or oranges, aren't you? So it's very important. The first thing we establish is it's not particularly logical. So just be prepared for that. That's the thing. So everything you can hear is divided up into what are called octaves. And octaves are the same note but higher. So what you would have is, let's say, a C on a piano, and I'm going to show you this first on a piano keyboard. There's a little graphic coming up in a moment, and this will show you where all the notes of C crop up. Okay, so as you'll see from that, the useful range of notes is 7 and a bit octaves. At the extremes, the notes become very, very shrill and short, or very blurred. So it's not a bad idea to think of octaves rather like the days of the week, 7 of them ish, and they're all pretty much the same thing. They have their own characteristics, but really just repeating the same thing each octave. So if we can find out what happens in one octave, we've just found out what's happening in all of them. So the first thing we're going to say is we're just going to have a quick look actually at how those octaves look on a guitar. So this is how they'd sound. I've got a note of E here, and then I've got another one here. These aren't the only places we could play them, but just for clarity, I've got another one here and another one here. Okay, so that's a range of 3 octaves, and then we've got nearly all the way to another octave. If I bend that string, I can just about get that E at the top. It would be fair to say, if you look at the next graphic, that shows you where what I've just played is situated, and you can see the guitar takes a very useful 4 octave slice out of the middle of those ranges. Okay, so all the natural notes, and that's going to be A, B, C, D, E, F, G, before we come back to A again. Are 2 frets apart. At least that's what we're going to say for the moment. So if I put a finger on here, this is a 5th fret of my 6th string. It kind of doesn't matter because the principle's the same wherever I was really, but if I put my finger on there, and let's call that A. It is A as it happens, but okay, so that's A. This is B. Okay, so when we say the notes, the natural notes as in are a tone apart, that means 2 frets. So clearly there's something in the middle here, isn't there? Now, it would be lovely, wouldn't it, if there was a musical sign for in the middle of. Unfortunately, there isn't. However, this is where sharps and flats come in. So the musical sign for, let's call it a bit higher than, so a bit higher than A is A sharp. Okay, now I'm talking about tones and semitones here. In American terminology, that would be half steps, semitones, and whole steps, tones. So, okay, so A and a bit is A sharp. So that's kind of okay, but it becomes rather confusing to a lot of people when you can describe it a second way and still be talking about the same note, because this note's a bit higher than A, but it's also a bit lower than B. So we've got A here, we've got B here, and in between, well, we could either say A sharp or B flat. Okay, so that's the principle of sharps and flats. Sharp, 1 fret higher than, flat, 1 fret lower than. So you can imagine what we'd have between D and E. It's not very difficult, is it? It would be D sharp or E flat. Doesn't really matter which one you call it particularly, unless you're going down the super duper theory route, which I'd probably advise you not to. It's really about what you can hear and what you can see, not what you can calculate. So okay, D sharp, note higher than D. E flat, the note a little bit lower than E. So that's all great, and I'm sure you can now fill in or join up the dots, as we say, as to what might happen between all of the notes, which would be great if all of them were a tone apart. So what messes up this whole equation and provides us with the illogical part of it is that two pairs of notes are actually next to each other. In other words, they don't have a sharp or flat in between. They're only a semitone or a half step apart. So these two are B and C, and E and F. Okay, so those are the two exceptions, but everything else, the notes are 2 frets apart, the note in the middle, there's 2 names for it, sharp or flat. Now, that's most of what you need to know about sharps and flats. Right there. There isn't really anything else to know. You can write double sharps and you can write double flats. We'll come on to that another time. The real question is, how do we remember it all? Well, the answer to that is we don't remember where all the sharps are. We just remember where they're not. So we just think of B and C and E and F and let the others take care of themselves. Okay, hope that clears that up. Anybody got any questions on this? Obviously, drop me a message. And also, if you wouldn't mind clicking on the subscribe icon, that would be great. Thanks a lot.